So after completing Elden Twilight in a Wii any percent speedrun, we need to get to Lake Hylia to continue progressing. If you've seen GameCube runs, they get there by using a boomerang LGA to escape Farron and then simply clip through the gate to Lanayru. The Wii version can't do boomerang LGAs, so what you're seeing on screen is what it's done instead. In a casual setting, you buy bombs, blow up the rocks north of the Bridge of Elden, enter the Twilight Wall, dash all the way through Harrow Field to get to the Great Bridge of Hylia, and then jump off the edge to arrive in Lake Hylia. In We Any Percent, not only do we not have bombs yet to blow up the rocks, there's also a faster way to get there. If we perform Map Glitch, which disables load zones and voids, we can ride Epona out of bounds all the way to the entrance of Flight by Foul. Once we arrive there, our save location is updated, allowing us to save warp and reload, which disables Map Glitch. From here we can enter Flight by Foul, clip through this corner, and arrive in Lake Hylia. So there's a few things to understand here. You might ask, why do we have to take this strange path anyways? Can't we just ride Epona directly to the Flight by Foul entrance? We could do that, but unfortunately the actor that updates our save position isn't present unless the corresponding section of Hyrule Field is loaded. The game doesn't keep all of Hyrule Field loaded simultaneously. Instead, it divides it into rooms and only has a few loaded at a time to save memory. The transitions which load each room of Hyrule Field only exists in adjacent rooms on the map. You might be able to see where this is going. We must load the room of Hyrule Field that has the entrance to Flight by Foul. And to load that room, we must hit the loading transition in the previous adjacent room. To load that room, we must hit the loading transition in that room's adjacent room, and so on. The path we are taking is essentially just sequentially loading each room of the map, hitting the transition to load the next room, and continuing the process all the way until we get to Flight by Foul. You might ask, doesn't Map Glitch disable load zones? Yes, it does disable load zones, which are the triggers that cause the game to fade to black or white and load a new area. However, it doesn't disable loading transitions, which are the triggers that dynamically load each room of the Hyrule Field map. And also, to address a potential elephant in the room, how is Epona flying? This is because Epona's height does not decrease when there is no floor collision below her. Note that I said no floor collision, not the void. Technically, void planes count as floor, and this is relevant to our pathing. When she is over the floor, she rapidly starts decreasing in height. For the most part, we try to avoid riding over floor, but we use this to our advantage in some parts of the sequence to manage our height, as we need to be at specific heights to touch each loading transition. So hopefully I've adequately explained what's going on. We do map glitch to disable load zones, then sequentially touch each loading transition in each room of Hyrule Field. In each room, we remain careful to only clip back in bounds or travel over floor collision when it's safe or necessary to do so. Once we reach the room containing the entrance to Flight by Foul, we get off Epona, go near the door, save warp, reload, enter, and then clip through the corner to end up in Lake Hylia. The remainder of the video will be a tutorial on how to do this. Alright, so I've just done and completed Elden Twilight, and I've ridden Epona out through the north exit of Kakariko, and now we're just going to get off and do map glitch real quick. And details on how to do map glitch will be in the description. The important thing to know is that this glitch is patched on certain versions, so yeah. Now we're just going to get an Epona, and if you get an Epona and there's a fade out to white, that means you didn't do map glitch properly. So anyways, we're going to start riding this way. No fade out, so that means we did it right. And one important thing to note is that the collision that you see does not always going to match up with the textures. So as you can see, there's a wall right here. But if we keep going this way, the wall collision actually ends right about here. And here is when we can turn right and go in this direction. Alright, so next up we need to get to this loading transition right here. And the thing is, there's a massive void floor here. And it's pretty much just a big rectangle that's really far below us. So, as you can see, if I go in this direction and stand Epona over it, she's going to start rapidly decreasing in height. And it's going to keep decreasing in height until we get to the bottom of the floor. If I turn on ground collision, you can actually see where it is. So the edge is right here, and then the corner is right here. So basically what we're doing is we're doing the same thing really high up. We're getting to this corner and then turning right. And then we actually do want to decrease height a little bit. So we're going to briefly wander over the edge of the void floor and let Epona's height sink a little bit. And then we're going to react to it, get back out of bounds, and keep going in this direction. So that was just me showing you what's down there. But anyways, we want to go in this direction. And I'm actually looking for, do you see like this, kind of this little corner of the grass? That little polygon edge? That's the kind of the direction I'm going in. So I'm going to keep going in this direction, spacing out my dashes evenly, and I'm also going to make sure not to run out of dashes. It's pretty much the best way to use dashes. But as you can see, I'm getting closer to that little corner right there, and I'm on the left edge of it. That's just a cue I use. You can probably pick your own cue as well, but I'm going in this direction, and then how I know when to turn right is when you see this bottom polygon on the right goes off screen. That's my cue for when I know, okay, now it's time to turn right. So once that happens, okay, now I'm turning right, and now I'm going to head Epona towards this mountain in the distance. Alright, so now it's time to drop some height. So I start dashing in this direction, and I just react to Epona falling by moving to the left. And then I want to start going in this direction. I'm looking at like the left half of these trees as a cue, and then I continue on this way. So as long as your position is good, this drop is very lenient. So this is about as high as you can get away with and still be fine. And then this is about as low as you can get away with and still be fine. So it's very lenient. As long as you just react to it and move out of the way, you should be fine. And I guess there's not really a great cue, but if Link's kind of like even with this little thing right here, that should be pretty good. And if you do actually end up dropping way too much or not enough, I'll explain what the backups are later on. So keep dashing this way, and then I'm looking at this shadow right here. I kind of just react to it going off screen, and now I'm going to start dashing northeast. And I can just go through this wall here. And now what I'm looking at is I want to pass around the left edge of this wall in the distance right here. So now we're going to go around this corner here, and we're going to be careful to not clip back in bounds. And of course I'll go over backups later if you do that, but stay left here. You can actually go over this polygon and be fine, as long as you don't go any further right than that. So now is where we touch the transition to load the next room of Harrowfield. So something I didn't mention before is that Epona has a property where if she's in dash speed and she dashes under floor collision, she'll do a little pop-up and come back in bounds. I'll show you what it looks like. It's like that. So we don't want this to happen, so we want to touch the transition without going back in bounds. And we do that by not being in a dash, so our speed is low enough so that when we travel under this floor, we can load the next area without coming back in bounds. And something to note is that if you're too far below the floor, you'll be too low to load the next room. So this isn't going to work because I'm too far. So I see, okay, I need to go back closer to the floor to load the next area. And that worked. And then once I know that I've loaded the next room, I can literally see it loaded here, and I can also see this map piece is highlighted. Then I can start traveling in this direction. I'm kind of just going towards Hyrule Castle. And the only thing to note here is that I don't want to travel directly under this Twilight wall right here, as it will put me into the Twilight. So if I go into Trigger Viewer and enable Twilight Gates, you can see there's a trigger right here, and despite what it looks like, this actually extends infinitely downwards. So if I go underneath it, I'm going to be warped into the Twilight, which is not what I want. So just remember to go around that, and then be on your way in this direction. So now we're going to do pretty much the same thing, where we travel underneath the floor to load the next room. And there's kind of two ways to approach this. The way I do most often is I kind of start from the left, and then right about here I go to the right to travel underneath the floor, and then that should load the area. And then the other way to approach it is, I do this when I have a lot of height, usually. I just start off on the right side like this, and then I get really close to the wall, and that should also load it just fine. And sometimes you end up loading the next area, but you hit this wall right here, and that's fine. Just turn to the right and go around it, and you'll be fine. Alright, so now we're headed towards the castle. We actually want to get over here, but we can't take a direct path. If I try to do that, I'm going to get stopped, and that's because of this wall that's really far below Epona. So I do have to go around it. Then once this area loads, the floor is going to load, which will drop Epona's height. And then I kind of want to go towards this tower right here in this direction. And once I pass through the tower, I look again, and my cue here is not this tree, but this tree right here. I kind of go towards this direction. Go through this wall. There's no floor here, so it's fine to pass through here. And now I'm right here. So this is the last transition that we have to touch from out of bounds, and this one is also the sketchiest. And the reason why it's sketchy is because if we clip inbounds here, then as you can see there's rocks here, and there's also rocks on the other sides. And that means we're soft locked, so we have to save warp and start the whole thing over again, which loses like 5 minutes. So yeah, gotta be really careful not to clip back in bounds here. Just like with the other ones, I'm gonna go underneath the wall. And as you can see, I know that I loaded it because this little area got loaded. So yeah, right underneath the floor to load the next area. I know it loaded, so now I'm gonna head towards this fourth tree right here. Once I see that I'm around this wall, I'm going to go to the left, and then I'll be on my way on this path. One thing to note here is that it is technically possible to crash here, although it shouldn't ever happen if you approach it the way I do. But you can crash if you end up approaching it from this side, and then you go this way. But yeah, it shouldn't ever happen. Just try not to clip back and bounce. That's the main thing. But yeah, anyways, sometimes if you ever try to go too far left here, you're going to notice that you get stopped by this wall here. And like I said before, these walls stop opponent from both sides. And it's kind of annoying because you have to go all the way around it to the right and you can't see where it is. So I'm going to show you what it looks like in collision viewer here. So all of the walls look like this. So you'll notice I have to go all the way over here to go around it. But once I'm around it, it's back to normal. And yeah, pretty much smooth sailing from here. Just evenly spaced dashes. And this is just an optimization, but I look for this horse grass on the right to know when to line up my second to last dash like that. Then once I get here, instead of getting stopped like this, you can actually hold down on the stick right before you reach this part to manually start the sliding animation sooner, so that even though the animation started sooner, you actually dismounted in the same spot, which saves a few frames. Now all you gotta do is go past this twilight wall, and it should update your save location so that when you save and reset and reload, it should put you in Lake Hylia like so. And I go past the twilight wall to be safe, but as you can see, this is what the trigger looks like. So the best line is technically right here, and that should be good to save warp as well. If for some reason you forget and you accidentally go into this door, this will happen, but it doesn't actually matter. Just save warp here and you'll still be fine. Once you save and reload, just simply go through this door, and then do Quayforce Clip, which is where you go to this corner right here. Align pretty much directly towards this wall, and go in the corner and slash. I should fall through. Jump attack so I avoid the slow animation, and now I'm in Lake Hylia. You can transform, talk to fire, do whatever. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Alright, now let's talk about backups. So what happens if you drop too low here? So the best thing to do if you drop too low is to just dash directly to the Twilight Gate. And remember how I said that the Twilight Gates extend infinitely downwards? We can actually use that to our advantage here, and just go to the Twilight Gate, hit it from below, from all the way down to the void floor, and then we're going to get warped out by the cutscene. The cutscene is going to transform us into Wolf, it's going to play the whole cutscene, and then from there we can just dash all the way to the Bridge of Hylia, like how we do in Glitchless. So the Twilight Wall, you can see it, it's this green thing. I'm just going to the edge of this green wall. And once I reach there, I should get warped up, and the cutscene should start. Let's get the cutscene. Talk to Midna, she's gonna bring me in. On the other side, I get transformed to Wolf. Then I can just dash the rest of the way there, and then I'll show you the path, but I'm going to speed up this part. And yeah, then once you get here, the cutscene is going to play, and then just like normal, you can jump off, get into like Hylia like that. So what if you didn't drop enough? So it's actually not possible to, if you dropped at all, then you definitely dropped enough. It's just going to be kind of weird. There's this weird wall you have to go around, and then go underneath the floor. You're going to get a mid-text, Not much you can do about that. Yeah, once you get that, it's kind of an invisible wall right here, which I'm sliding against right now. Then, once I'm past that, I can be on my way this way. And like I said before, I'm able to load the area from right here. And then I'll be on my way. This one's pretty easy to avoid, but if you do clip back in here, you are screwed and you have to save warp, because you are trapped in here. If you accidentally clip and bounds right here, then also not a huge deal. Just get off Epona once you're close to the gate, get this Minitex, and then enter the Twilight Gate. And once you do that, it's just the same as what I showed before, where you dash all the way to the Great Bridge of Hylia. And that goes for also just accidentally hitting this trigger. Just dash all the way to the Bridge of Hylia if you do that. Not a huge deal, but yeah. So what if you clip back and bounds here? This actually isn't really a big deal at all. This only loses a few seconds. And the first thing I'm going to do is hit this awkward cutscene that takes me off Epona. Hit this Minitex, then get back on. And I'm going to go in the direction that I would on Wolf that I was showing before for most of the way. So I'm going to cross this bridge. I'm going to go this way. Also, don't ask me what these weird blue planes are. I couldn't tell you. Anyways, keep going this direction. Turn this corner. Almost there. Once you see this dark spot, it's like, okay, now I can go through here. And this part of the map might look familiar. This is where this sketchy loading transition is, where we don't want to put back and bounds. So anyways, we touch the trigger from higher up this time. And yeah, now I'm on my way just like normal. Then it is actually possible to drop too low here, but it should never happen if you just go the right direction. But if for some reason you go to the left here, and you sink all the way to the floor, then you're going to be too low to load that transition. So you're going to have to clip back and bounds here. Then once you do that, obviously Epona can't climb the steps, so we're going to transform Wolf and climb these steps. And then we're going to go in this direction. But remember, we can't go all the way there because map glitch is still active, so we would just jump off and fall into the void. So luckily, like kind of by flight by foul, there is an area that updates our save position. So once we reach out about right here, we can save warp. And then once we reload, we should be in here, where we can just turn around, go in this load zone. And then from here, we just dash to the Great Bridge of Hylia. But yeah, that should pretty much cover everything. Let me know if I miss anything. And yeah, I hope that's useful.